You are now listening to the IELTS podcast. Learn from tutors and ex-examiners who are masters of IELTS preparation. Your host, Ben Worthington.
Recent IELTS Task 2 writing questions. Hi there, my name is Ben Worthington. In this tutorial, we are going to cover some questions seen by students on the exams. They were sent to us by our own students and found online. And we're going to basically break down possible answers and, more importantly, how to attack these types of questions. We've got all different types: problem solution, agree, disagree, all of those. And I'm going to show you how to do it. Before we get started, let me explain who I am. My name is Ben Worthington. I'm from England, up north. You may have recognized some of the vowel sounds and maybe a small remnant of my accent that I used to have. But anyway, I lost my accent because I went to Spain about 15 years ago, started teaching English. It wasn't fair to teach kids a Yorkshire accent. No, I'm just joking. But nobody understood me, so I slowly had to lose it. And I was teaching English. Eventually, I specialized in IELTS preparation. And to get even better, I started by asking other professionals and experts in the sector how to improve their students' scores. And this led me to conversations with linguists, with pronunciation experts, the academic experts, and then I thought, I'm going to record these interviews. And then after getting that knowledge, after getting that knowledge, I tested it with my students. If it worked and improved scores, then it went into the online course we have. And if it didn't work, then I threw it out. That's basically it. So if you are looking to pass the IELTS exam and you don't know where to start, then perhaps go to IELTSpodcast.com, and there you will see we've got a special offer at the moment, and we are doing essay corrections for a ridiculously low price. And this is because it's good to see if we are the right fit for each other, because you might not like the way we work and we might not like your essays. I'm just joking, but it's just a good fit to see if we can work together. So have a look at that. Go to IELTSpodcast.com and you will see the essay correction offer we have at the moment. Let's jump into it. I've got 3 questions, and all from different types of questions. So let's go. The first one: grab a pen, by the way. And this way you can follow the process and ideally try it with your own essays, and even possibly write an essay from my notes. So let's go. Question number 1. Prison is the common way in most countries to solve the problem of crime. However, a more effective solution is to provide people with a better education. Do you agree or disagree? Let's see. So I'm going to get 2 ideas for each paragraph. Paragraph 1, prison is a good idea. Body paragraph number 2, better education is a solution. There we go. I've got my plans now. Let's see. Prison is common because it's effective. These are my notes, and this is what I'm going to write about. So let's just go back to the question. Prison is the common way in most countries to try and solve the problem of crime. That's body paragraph 1. However, a more effective solution is to provide people with a better education. I'll use that for body paragraph 2, thank you. So let's go. Prison is common because it's effective. Bullet point 1. Bullet point 2. It takes criminals off the street. Okay, that's why we have prisons, because they're effective. The issue is that it's only a short-term problem, because what happens upon release? Now, in my notes, I usually write down shorthand ideas that I can develop. However, sometimes a phrase will drop into my mind and I'll write down the entire phrase. Why is that? Because I'm like, that is good vocabulary, or that is the perfect phrase to include. And in this case, I put what happens upon release, because that was a nice phrase. It's almost a collocation, upon release, and it fits perfectly. It's some higher level grammar I could definitely use. So I've got my 3 ideas. It's probably a little bit thin. So how do I extend it? Well, I can extend it now with some examples or some studies. I'm not going to go into how to write examples or how to reference studies just now, but that's what I would do. I would extend it that way and then develop the same point. Not over and over again, but basically I'd say the same argument, but in the form of an example or a study. Body paragraph 2. Let's just go back. So in the question, it says, however, a more effective solution is to provide people with better education. Do you agree or disagree? I'm going to say yes. Do I personally think that better education would solve the problem of crime in countries? I don't know. Is it easier to write? Yes, it is. For me, I just found it was the first position that came into my mind. And I was like, okay, let's just go with this. Education is better. And also, it makes me sound like a better person, to be honest. If I write, no, criminals should be thrown in jail and their hands should be cut off, and education will not change a person if they are morally corrupt, it doesn't make me sound like a good person, does it? And so I'm just going to say education will solve the problem because, and I could think of lots of ideas. I thought it gives the person better prospects. If they have a job, they are less likely to commit a crime. They're more likely to have a job if they're better educated. So you can see I'm developing this argument, and then, like the first paragraph, I'm going to give an example, and I can just say Norway. A recent study in Norway showed that when potential criminals were offered free higher education, crime rates in these cities dropped drastically. Something like that. Norway comes to mind because it's nowadays everybody looks at Norway and it's like the perfect country, so it's good to put Norway into the argument here, especially in this. If I'm talking about, gun crime, I'm not going to talk about Norway. I'm going to talk about the USA most likely, or some other country. But in this respect, Norway is world famous for having some ridiculously generous social programs, so it was believable. Conclusion. Final paragraph. Conclusion. Prison is a short-term solution. Education is definitely better. I might write it. That does seem like a little bit blunt. I'd probably write something like outweigh the benefits and so on and so forth. But just for my notes, I put prison is a short-term solution. Education is definitely better. Then I put down, I think, using both, because after all, prison is a necessary deterrent. And in my notes, I put a circle around deterrent, because this is a phrase, again, that, as I said before, what happens upon release when a convict is released from jail. Likewise, a deterrent was a really suitable phrase. This is topic-specific vocabulary, so I didn't want to lose that. Next question. In some countries, there are fewer young people who listen to or play classical music these days. Why is this? Should young people be encouraged to play or perform classical music? Now, I could jump in and talk for body paragraph 1. I could talk about should young people be encouraged to play music? The body paragraph 2, the benefits of playing classical music. No, that would be a task response train crash. We do not want a task response train crash. All of you listening are capable of avoiding this task response train crash. How do we do it? Well, we analyze the question and we break it down and we assign ideas to parts of the question. This is what we train in the online course, and how to dissect the question, break it down and plan your answer. In this case, body paragraph 1 is why are less young people playing classical music or listening to classical music? Okay, because it directly says, why is this? So I've got to answer it if I want to get points for task response. My next body paragraph is, should young people be encouraged to play or perform classical music? And I don't think, okay, in the end I put yes. Do I personally believe this? No, probably not. When I was writing this, I did think it was a good idea they should be encouraged. Actually, I think the reason why it should be is because of musical intelligence. Because I had the phrase musical intelligence, and I thought that would sound great in the essay. On the second run through this, I'm thinking, no, children shouldn't be forced to do antiquated tasks. However, it doesn't really matter, my personal opinion. I'm going to go for the easiest to describe, and in the end, I came up with a reasonable argument. Again, as I've said a million times before, IELTS is a language test. Language is communication. Intelligent ideas are difficult to communicate. So go for simple ideas that are easier to communicate and score points in the language exam, score points in the communication exam. Let's jump into the meat and potatoes of this answer. Let's go. So why are students playing less and listening to less classical music? Well, there are a lot of distractions available at the moment. One, we've got the internet, we've got video games, we've got more sports than ever, we've got extracurricular activities. We have all of these different distractions available. And basically, classical music is competing against these. Now, when I'm planning my essay, all these ideas are coming out, but when I'm writing it, I'm going to reorganize it slightly differently so I finish with internet. So I will say we're in an age of opulence regarding distractions. It basically means ridiculous wealth of distractions. So I could say young people have the Kindles, have video games, have the internet. And I'm going to finish with the internet because this is the argument that I'm going to now develop further. And I'm going to say, furthermore, there's no powerful force behind classical music. Whereas with social media, we have our social media is fueled by titans such as Facebook and TikTok. So the competition for attention is even harder. So in this paragraph, I've given a few different reasons, then I developed one reason further, and then I gave an example with Facebook and TikTok. And the structure of the essay there, I didn't start off with internet as a distraction and then come back to it later after mentioning video games. No, I would have reorganized it, finished with internet as my final point, and developed that further. So that is why fewer young people are listening or playing classical music, because basically it's competing against TikTok and Facebook and whatnot. Body paragraph 2. Should young people be encouraged to play or perform classical music? Yes. Again, I'm questioning, why did I say yes? It seems a bit cruel. However, I'm going to say yes because I'm going to say, basically, I wanted to argue about musical intelligence. And I know with that phrase, I can develop it further. I can invent a study, and we tell you how to invent realistic, believable studies. I did have another argument as well. One argument was cultural heritage for some countries. Mozart, the famous classical musician, is Austrian, and he is a source of national pride in Austria, and having no classical musicians in Austria could be an embarrassment. So this is why we should develop it. Again, on second thoughts, that sounds like a weak argument. I might put it in at the beginning, but I wouldn't really develop it further. It's just an additional argument. Maybe I'd even delete it when it comes to planning the essay. I did have one good argument, though, which was that playing a classical instrument is safer than going on social media because you cannot be bullied. You cannot suffer from cyberbullying. Now, interestingly, while I was planning this, I had this idea or this witty comment that you cannot be, you cannot be cyberbullied when you're playing a clarinet. But I thought that could be interpreted incorrectly as, well, yes, you could be cyberbullied for playing a clarinet. Why not? And the idea was that if I'm playing a clarinet and I'm not on social media, then I'm not going to get bullied. But as you can see, it's too complicated. I would have to be very careful on how I phrase it so I can avoid that confusion. And it's so much simpler if I just go for musical intelligence. Musical intelligence, there are numerous skills to be gained from playing a musical instrument, such as empathetic awareness. Your listening skills improve, and so does your psychometric coordination, for example. Recent studies show. And you can see there, it's a simple idea, it's easy to communicate, and then I can back it up by a study, and I'm not getting mixed up with this silly argument of a clarinet and being cyberbullied and whatnot. The only reason why I really wanted to go with that was to mention the term cyberbullying, because I knew it's a good term to put in, but again, it's not really relevant, so I'm not going to force it. So just bear that in mind. My conclusion, in summary, I don't have to give my opinion here, do I? No. I'll say, in summary, people are playing, the classical music is falling in popularity. It's basically saying the same as the question, but with different words because of the amount of alternatives. I'm not going to say distractions again. I want to improve my score by showing my lexical resource skills, my depth of vocabulary. So I'll say alternatives. For the lack of for people are playing less instruments because of the dearth, because of the wide range of opportunities available, and full stop. Most likely, students should be encouraged because of the benefits such as musical intelligence and cultural heritage. Very summarized summary there. Summarized conclusion. I could develop it a little bit further, but that's the general idea. Remember, I've only got 40 minutes for this. Next one. Final question. Some people feel that the effects of advertising are positive for individuals and businesses, while others think they are negative. Discuss both sides and give your own opinion. So again, what do? We simplify the question. P1. Advertising is positive for consumers. And here, just rereading the question, it says for individuals and businesses. So I might have to add a sentence about it being positive for businesses, i.e. it allows them to grow faster. But the main point of my paragraph when I was planning was that it's beneficial for for consumers. And then in body paragraph 2, it's negative for consumers. Okay, I simplified it, and then I've got arguments for and against. So it's positive because it helps businesses grow. Also for consumers, it informs them of the choices. Inform was one of the words I wanted to use here. So I put a circle around that. It can instill belief. So if you see a person in an advert that lost 5 kilos, before they were quite heavy and now they're looking fit and six-pack and whatever, it can make you believe that, hey, if they can do it, I can do it too. So in that respect, it's positive. It could be a form of education. And now, I've given you 1 or 2 reasons the final reason, a form of education, I'm going to develop it further. And I'm going to say it's a form of education. For example, YouTube is full of educational content creators who rely on advertisers for their income. Okay, so organization of your ideas is critical. We need to go for clarity, and also they all need to be coherent. So this is why I mentioned a form of education at the end as my final, and then that's the one I'm going to develop further. By the way, the organization of ideas and into coherent paragraphs is quite straightforward. We've got a framework full of sentences where you just drop your ideas in and the essay writes itself. It's really, really straightforward. And we're getting fantastic results for it. And that is a form of advertising. And you can too. And I've instilled beliefs. There we go. Let's go. Advertising is negative because it can cause discomfort and body shame. Body shame is another phrase that I wanted to mention. Beauty products, for example, they can show a person full of wrinkles, and the person afterwards, after using the cream, is now 20 years younger, has a tan, and the pictures the pictures in color. So it can revolutionize your life. Next. Advertising is negative because it adds to the cost of the product. So you might buy a product that is $400, but $200 of that could have easily gone on advertising. And if you see the adverts following you around on the internet and you can't escape, then that company is spending a lot of money on adverts to get your attention and to get you to purchase their product. And you end up paying for those adverts. For example, the product's $400. You've probably spent at least half of that on the adverts if you're seeing a lot of adverts. Final argument. Again, this follows the same structure. I reorganized it. I think when I was brainstorming ideas, I had lots of different random ones. I chose the best and then I reorganized them into a coherent paragraph. And so following on from it adds to the cost of the product. I said retargeting. This is basically what I was saying. When the advert follows you around, you are getting targeted again. Retargeting can be seen as invasive. This is negative. If it's following around, it's just like, leave me alone. I'm at home. I don't want these adverts right now. And then this is why new privacy concerns and regulations keep appearing, for example. And now I will talk about GDPR. So again, you can see the final argument links very coherently with the cost of the product. I think when I was brainstorming, first I came up with the cost of the product, then I came up with body shame, and then I came up with retargeting, invasive, GDPR. So I had to reorganize it so it all flowed. Conclusion. My opinion is that advertising is fine if it is in moderation. So I'm saying it's good, but when they follow you around and they invade your privacy, and it can be detrimental, another useful term to include in your essay. There we go. Straightforward, kind of easy. Not kind of easy, I'm sorry, that was maybe a little bit. But it does get easy. On the course, we tell our students to come up with ideas, to brainstorm ideas, and we give them feedback on their possible ideas. And then after that, we ask them to write a simple essay using our structure. We give them feedback, and we see big improvements. So those were 3 recent questions we saw. Also, we update our online course with these questions. And so every now and again, a student will be like, hey, Ben, on the exam, I had the question that we had in the course. Well, that was fantastic. And I knew exactly what to write because I'd written it before. So this is why we update our questions in our course, so that it's all up to date and relevant. That's it from me. Remember, if you want to start improving your essays, then come to IELTSpodcast.com and you'll see a special offer. We're only doing 50 essays at $5. I think we're about halfway through, so get a move on with that before the offer ends. That's it from me. Have a great day and good luck with your IELTS preparation.
Thanks for listening to IELTSpodcast.com.